Destiny being put in a spot where she had to make it clear where her loyalty stands. There is just so much to unpack. Can trust me, you'll want to stick around all the way until the end because the conversations, the tension, and the way history keeps getting dragged back up is something that you don't want to miss. So let's start with Tisha, because honestly, she was front and center in all of this. When Tisha and Nell sat down to talk, I feel like things could have gone differently if Tisha wasn't so defensive. And that's not shade, that's just facts. Instead of listening to Nell and acknowledging the part she played in things, Tisha got super emotional, super defensive, and ended up taking the conversation backwards instead of moving forward. And I know some people will say, well, Nell came in hot. But let's be real, if someone put their hands in your husband Chris Fletcher's face and got disrespectful, wouldn't you expect at least a simple apology the next time you saw them? That's all Nell was really expecting. But instead of Tisha saying, you know what, I was wrong, let me own up to it, she did what she always does. She deflected, she tried to twist the story, and she even brought up old situations that should have stayed buried. And here's the thing with Tisha, is a pattern. One of the most frustrating parts of watching her is that even when you think things are getting better and relationships are moving in the right direction, she has this way of circling back to the past. Instead of letting things go and keeping it in the past, she brings it back up like it just happened yesterday. That's exactly what she did in this conversation with Nell, and it made things way more heated than they needed to be. And y'all, when she dragged the whole Atlanta situation back into the mix of one where Ursa was supposedly hanging out in Atlanta, and his back picture was floating all over the internet, it just made everything worse. Because instead of keeping the focus on her own accountability, she tried to throw Chris Fletcher into the mix, almost like shifting the blame onto Nell's marriage. And fans could see it right away. Tisha was trying to reinvent history instead of owning up to what really happened. Now, while all of that was going on, we also had Destiny in the middle of another situation. And Destiny's storyline is one that always gets people talking, because she has this way of getting into these complicated situationships with men, and then later realizing that she actually wanted more from them. Remember her past with Moses? That was the perfect example. It was like a long-term situationship, but Destiny wanted relationship-level treatment, even though the relationship was never really defined. And that same pattern seems to be repeating. In this episode, when Destiny was talking about Lance and how casual things were, it almost felt like she was trying to downplay her feelings just so she wouldn't look rejected. Like she wanted to seem like the cool girl who was okay with something casual when deep down she really wanted something serious. And that's where things get messy, because once you put it out there that things are casual, the other person is going to take advantage of that. So when Lance didn't give her the respect she felt she deserved, he had the perfect excuse. Well, you said it was casual. And that right there is the trap Destiny keeps falling into. But what really got interesting was when Kimmy sat down with Destiny and Tisha, and the whole topic of transparency came up. Now, I don't know about you, but I found it hilarious that these three were talking about transparency when honestly, none of them are transparent. Not Destiny, not Tisha, not even Kimmy. All three of them hold back. All three of them deflect when it suits them, and all three of them avoid being real. When the conversation gets uncomfortable, and the fact that they were trying to talk about who's more transparent was actually laughable. Fans were pointing out that the whole conversation was dry, boring, and went absolutely nowhere. But then Kimmy hit Destiny with that question about whether she's going to pick sides between Tisha and Martell Holt, and who. That's when the tension got real, because it suddenly exposed something that fans have noticed for a long time. Tisha does not want Destiny to be close to Martell, but Destiny made it clear that she's not about to cut Martell off. In fact, she said her whole connection to the group came through Martell, and she still holds him accountable even though, let's be honest, fans haven't really seen her hold him accountable in any meaningful way. If anything, she's usually laughing, smirking, or brushing off his behavior. It definitely doesn't look like she's checking him the way she claims she is. And that's what makes this so messy. Because when Melody Shari had issues with Kimmy for being too close to people she didn't rock with, everyone said Melody was being too demanding. But now here we are with Tisha, doing the same thing, basically saying, Destiny can't be close with Martell if she's close with her. So, is it different now, or is it just another case of double standards? Fans are calling it out left and right. And it's definitely one of those situations where no matter what Destiny says, it looks like she's playing both sides. Now let's circle back to Jalen and Kimmy for a moment. Jalen shared that he landed a job in Huntsville and even negotiated a better salary for himself. That was a good move, but what stood out more was the way he felt about his stepdad, Maurice. He said Maurice always seems to deflect when he tries to talk to him, and that's something Kimmy admitted is just how Maurice is. But instead of telling Maurice directly, Jalen went back and told Kimmy privately. And I think that's where he made a mistake. Because now it looks like he's venting to his mom instead of handling things directly like an adult. Fans were pointing out that if Jalen wants a better relationship with Maurice, he's going to have to stand on his own, say how he feels to Maurice directly, and stop filtering everything through Kimmy. But honestly, that was just a side note. Compared to the bigger drama of the night, Tisha and Nell. Because when Tisha refused to apologize, refused to take accountability, and started deflecting again, it was like watching the same cycle repeat. Nell tried to explain that Tisha came at her on 100. But Tisha insisted she didn't. And then, instead of staying focused, Tisha dragged in the Atlanta situation. And I think that's when everyone watching just shook their heads, because it was clear that Tisha wasn't interested in resolving the issue. She was interested in flipping it back on Nell and Chris Fletcher instead of dealing with her own actions. And let's be honest, this is why people say Tisha can't carry the show the way producers might want her to. She's being set up as the it girl of the series. But the problem is, she doesn't know how to push conversations forward. Instead, she gets overly emotional, gets stuck in the past, and ends up making things about everybody else instead of herself. It's not how you become the anchor of a show. Fans want someone who can take accountability, who can move the drama forward, and who can handle being called out without falling apart. But with Tisha, we're not seeing that. And that's why Nell's confrontation hit her so hard, because it forced Tisha to deal with something she didn't want to face. Now, what makes all of this even juicier is that we know the tension between Tisha, Nell, and Destiny is not going away anytime soon. Destiny already made it clear that she's not about to cut Martell Holt off, and we all know Tisha has a big problem with that, so that friendship is shaky at best. And with Tisha refusing to own up to her actions with Nell, that relationship is hanging on by a thread too. It's like everywhere Tisha turns, the walls are closing in, and instead of taking accountability, she's pointing fingers at everyone else. And here's the kicker: you'll want to keep watching until the very end of this season. Because the way these storylines are building, it's only going to get more explosive. Keisha's emotions, Destiny's loyalty, Nell's bluntness, and Martell always being at the center of the mess. That's a recipe for chaos. And as much as fans might roll their eyes at the back and forth, you can't deny that this is what keeps people tuning in week after week. So let me ask you, do you think Destiny will ever truly pick a side between Martell and Tisha? Do you think Tisha will ever learn to stop deflecting and start owning her actions? Or do you think this cycle is just going to keep repeating until it completely blows up? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I know everybody has an opinion about this one. And don't click away just yet, because there is so much more coming up in this season that you won't want to miss.